Hello, Create Schools. Today we're going to look at the third installment of the Vietnam War. This is Chapter 5, and I've entitled this section, A Turn for the Worse, and you'll see why. Go ahead and get out a piece of paper and a pen, and go ahead and put this as your subtitle, and we'll go on to the next slide when you're ready. So whenever I think about the Vietnam War, I always try to keep this graph in my mind because it really helps you separate the things. Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon are the three presidents that happened, and things that happened were very different in each presidency. So this mainly is going to be about Nixon's presidency. And oftentimes in the questions you're asked about how did Kennedy do this, how did Johnson do that, how did Nixon do this, and if you mix up what president's which president, you immediately lose all of the points. So to overview, we've had Kennedy, who was just mainly advisors. Then we had Johnson. So here we have Operation Rolling Thunder. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let's start before Operation Rolling Thunder. We do have Operation Rolling Thunder here, but before that, we had the Tonkin incident, and so then that's when all the troops get sent in, and now we're up here in 1968 is where this video starts, and it's right around the time that Nixon is getting ready to take over. So let's move in. So far from this screen you haven't had to take any notes, so I'll just go on to the next one. Okay, so the Tet Offensive, it is in 1968, and this is when North Vietnam and the Viet Cong forces strike the capital of Saigon and 100 other cities. So if you see all here, these are all the bombings and attacks that they did. And the Tet Offensive took place on the religious festival of Tet. And so no one was expecting any type of fighting to happen. Everyone thought everyone would be celebrating. So it really came as a huge shock to everyone when it actually happened. So again, here is your South Vietnam. Here is Saigon, the capital. And in that capital area, we have the U.S. Embassy, and there was a lot of fighting in the U.S. Embassy, but from the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese fighters, and the Americans had to fight room to room to retake the entire embassy. The aim of the rebels was to start a revolution in the South. As we have discussed before, many of the peasants were very sympathetic to the Viet Cong. They helped them out, and actually it seemed that a lot of them actually wanted to be communist. That is what the feeling that we've gotten so far. But what happened is when this attack, the Tet Offensive, started, the peasants didn't join. And so they were kind of like shocked, what's going on? Why are they not, joining us? We thought they liked us. So the plan backfired. They did not achieve a revolution. And worse yet, so if you're not done, pause here and finish this up. If you are done, come up with me to the next slide. So worse yet, the U.S. strikes back, and they basically retake over every single thing that the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong took over. So basically, because of this huge surprise, everything was taken. But then immediately, as soon as the U.S. comes back, within 3 months, so when I say immediately, it's not that fast. Within 3 months, it was all taken over, and it was a huge humiliation for the communists. Again, like I said, they believed that the peasants would join them. They were not joined. A revolution did not start, and they lost everything. So just to give you a little picture here. So write this down if you haven't done it already, and pause the video if you need to, and I'll move on to the next. Now, because of the Tet Offensive, there was a huge change in the United States. Okay, it was seen as the turning point of the war because it really started having the people ask, why are we in here? What's the whole point of being in here? Now, mind you, the peasants didn't join, but they really got to see this huge offensive done by the Southern Vietnamese against the people who are supposed to be defending the Southern Vietnamese. So it's kind of, it's confusing what happened. And since the Viet Cong soldiers were able to get into the embassy, it's also kind of like, what is going on? The Viet Cong cannot get into the embassy unless there's a lot of spies. So remember, the Viet Cong, no one knew who the Viet Cong were. They didn't wear a uniform, and a lot of time the Viet Cong were actual friends or allies with not allies, posing as friends or allies with the southern Vietnamese people. So in order to be able to actually get into the embassy, there was probably some, help to get in there or help to get a lot of these things. And it made the U.S. citizens, they hated Vietnam even more, and they're thinking, what's going on? And so this is the little one I have. It says, it's a dirty war. The U.S. get out, negotiate, even if the Reds don't want to. Do not forget, Reds are communist. And here's the politicians say, name a clean war. So the politicians will keep saying, there is no good war. Of course, there's a lot of killing in war. This is always what happens. So let's pause here if you need to take more notes. If not, come with me to the next slide. Okay, so then we've got a whole bunch of peace movements started in the United States. Basically, there were so many deaths and injuries. So if you go back and think to that slide that we saw earlier, there was a lot of deaths, or not the slide, the graph, lots of deaths, making people think, why are all the Americans dying for something that the majority of people don't believe in? In fact, so many of the Southern Vietnamese don't believe in it. And there's lots and lots of money being spent elsewhere. Okay. The other thing people start thinking about is the racial inequality of the draft. So at this time, if you don't remember, people are being drafted to go into the military or go into fighting. And what that means is they don't have a choice. They're being forced to. They have to serve for 1 year, and basically they're not really wanting to do that. And then of the draft, 30% are African American and 19% are white. So it's kind of odd that the percent of African Americans are so high. But then the next thing you think about, of all the casualties, of all the people dying in Vietnam, 22% of them were black. But of all the troops, there are only 11% of blacks total. So there's not a huge number of blacks in fighting. There's only 11% of them. But then if we look over at all the deaths, 22% were black. Why are there so many more blacks dying compared to the other percents of people? So basically they are putting up more in the dangerous fighting situations, and just, it's not looking good. Then Muhammad Ali, I hope you guys know Muhammad Ali. He's a famous boxer. He refused to fight. He said he was Muslim, and because of his religion, he's not allowed to fight. So basically they stripped his world championship from him, from boxing, and they took away his passport and wouldn't allow him to travel anymore. I mean, basically it was a huge humiliation. Everyone's like, what? I mean, the world loves Muhammad Ali. The one thing that you hopefully have realized now when we're looking at the 1920s in America also is that although black people in America are often looked upon, down upon, there's a lot of racial problems, the black people that are famous are really loved. Muhammad Ali, Louis Armstrong. And so, when Muhammad Ali loses his title, he was very upset with it. The world was very upset. So most people just did not like what was going on in Vietnam, and a lot of protesting. Oh, sorry, I should have told you to pause. Let me go back here. So go ahead and pause if you have not taken all of these notes. And so before I go to the protesting, we'll go to the first big media war. This is actually televised. Lots of things are going on. Families sit around the television watching it. The people are horrified by all the photos they're seeing, such as the Agent Orange photo, the famous one we saw in the last video. And they're thinking, this looks really cruel. Why are we doing this? There's lots of people dying, and it does not look like a crusade of against communism, and people are just really confused about what's going on because all of these bad images are being thrown into their face. They see all of these inequalities happening in the draft and in the killing. They see the injustice that they're doing to people, and the people really start thinking about what is going on. So pause here if you haven't taken these notes. And then we'll start looking at all of these anti-war protesters. The biggest anti-war protest, or the most famous, is the one done at Kent State University. So here are some pictures of it. So basically the protesters were peacefully protesting, and they come in and they start shooting. And I can't remember the exact number of people that were killed, but you know, it wasn't a huge number, but still lots of people killed is what they say. I'm thinking it's like 3 or 4 people killed. So let's go back here. A lot of these anti-war protests, they reached a maximum in 1968 to 1970. They were led by students, university students, and a lot of civil rights campaigners. In the 1968, when it started, there was 100 demonstrations going on, about 40,000 students involved. In 1 year, or a year and a half, there were almost 700,000 demonstrations in Washington, D.C. alone. And that's in November 1969. So you can see the amount of protests are really, really going up. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Pause here if you haven't written this down. Please do write here about Kent State University. It's good to be able to name a very specific one. Okay, I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so then what happens is a My Lai massacre. And if you hear the word massacre, you immediately should be shocked. It's, you know, lots of people being killed where they shouldn't be. So basically, as you know, the Viet Cong hide into the villages in South Vietnam, and that's one of the Hamlet relocation program that we talked about earlier. Also, one of the reasons why that happened is because of these Viet Cong hiding. And so this group, of Marines, they heard that there was a huge area of a whole bunch of only Viet Congs hiding in a village. So they come in and they are told that they have to kill anything that moves. And the people are, by this, you have to put the mentality of what the soldier is thinking, the GI, what he's thinking. Remember, they don't want to be there to begin with. They've most likely been drafted. They also have all of these Vietnamese or Viet Cong people hiding everywhere. You don't know who it is. You don't know who's going to attack you. I mean, even women are fighting. Young people are fighting. So you just really don't know what is going on. And so they come in there and they've been told that everyone in here is Viet Cong, and they're told that they should go ahead and just kill everything. Okay, of course this has a lot of media press going, because the media was going with so when a troop of people go in to fight, they also have someone usually in the media. Not always, but often. And so here there was media with them taking pictures about what's going on. And basically 500 villagers, including elderly and babies, were killed. They were told, kill everything that moved. And basically it turns out there were no Viet Cong in there. Okay, so I found a quote by Hugh Thompson Jr., and he said, "It looks to me like there's an awful lot of unnecessary killing. Something ain't right about this. There are bodies everywhere." He's a helicopter pilot, and he saw what was going on, but being a helicopter pilot, he's up high watching, and it's crazy. And what happened is eventually these people got put on trial, and the sergeant in charge got put in jail, and a few other people got put in jail. But basically this massacre totally angered the U.S. citizens. They're already thinking, what is going on? Why are we here? Why are we doing this? You know, this is not right. Okay, so the My Lai massacre is the turning point of the Vietnam War, and you will find out what happens due to it in my next video. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know.